Today I'm going to bring you another horror movie. Today's feature is still the American horror series, The Cobweb Boy. A boy hears strange sounds while sleeping. He quickly gets up and turns on the light. He discovers the sound comes from behind the wall. So the boy tells his mother about the sound. But when his mother comes to the wall, she does not hear any strange sounds. Carol says the house is decades old and there are bound to be some strange noises. Then she tells Peter to go to bed. The scene changes. The female lead, Divine, is a teacher. And Peter is her student. Because it is now time for physical education class, Divine asks Peter why he is not outside playing. Peter just says he is in a bad mood and does not say that Brian bullied him earlier. Time quickly moves to night. While Peter sleeps, he hears the sound again. And this time, it even calls Peter's name. Peter, scared, quickly calls his father, Mark. But it is still the same as last time. After Mark enters the room, the sound disappears. Peter is certain he did hear the sound. And it comes from behind that wall. Mark guesses it is probably due to mice. So he places some rat poison in Peter's room. But the next night, the sound speaks again. He tells Peter not to be scared, saying he just wants to chat with him. Because Peter has no friends at school and is often bullied. He treats this person as a confidant. He also gives Peter a suggestion to get revenge and teach Brian a harsh lesson. Time moves to the second day after school. Peter secretly follows Brian. Then, as Brian goes down the stairs, he pushes him from behind. Brian's lower leg immediately becomes incapacitated, turning him into a second-degree invalid. The scene changes. Mark begins to lecture Peter. He says their family does not allow using any violence to solve problems. To teach Peter a lesson, Mark locks him in a dark basement. He punishes Peter by forbidding him to come out for 3 days and 3 nights. Shortly after Mark left, the boy accidentally opened a wooden box and discovered a dungeon beneath. Something terrifying seems to be locked inside. The scene shifts. Because Divine worries about Peter's situation, she comes to Peter's home for a home visit. Peter's mother, Carol, opens the door. But she apparently does not welcome Divine's arrival. Then, the two argue while discussing Peter. Mark also picks up a hammer at this moment. Luckily, Divine notices the family's strangeness. She quickly gets up to leave. But as he leaves, she hears a banging sound on the door. The sound came from Peter kicking the door. Divine asks Mark what is happening. Mark says it is the sound of the washing machine. Then he quickly sends Divine away. Time moves to the third day. Mark releases Peter from the basement. Peter says he realizes his mistake and will definitely change in the future. Mark and his wife express their relief. After sending Peter to his room to sleep, they also return to their room to rest. But not long after closing the door, Peter immediately climbs out of bed. He goes to the wall. The voice says it is very worried about Peter and asks him where he has been these past few days. Peter says his parents locked him in the basement. The voice tells Peter he must be wary of Mark. It says they are two-faced and are bad people. Peter then asks to see him. The voice said there was a hole behind the wallpaper and told Peter that if he took it down, he could see it. Then Peter peels back the paper. He looks through the hole. But immediately after, he sees a terrifying eye appear inside. The voice told Peter not to be afraid, saying that she was actually Sarah, Peter's older sister. Her parents locked her up because they dislike her appearance. She also says that Mark and his wife eliminated the little girl who went missing from town years ago. The remains are buried in the backyard. But because of Sarah's terrifying appearance, Peter refuses to believe her. Then he hides under the covers and goes to sleep. But soon after, he hears someone knocking on the door outside. Then the door opens by itself. Peter suddenly sees Carol walk past him. But no matter how he calls her, she does not respond. And immediately after, Peter discovers Mark suddenly appears beside him. His 2 eyes are still blinking non-stop.
Look what you've done to your mother, Peter.
When Peter looks at the doorway again, Carol pounces on him as if possessed. The scene shifts, revealing it is Peter's nightmare. But this dream also enlightens Peter. So, while Carol is washing clothes, he takes a shovel and goes to the garden to dig. After a quick shovel, he indeed finds a skeleton. Peter is terrified. He plans to ask his homeroom teacher Divine for help. Then he quietly goes to Carol's room and picks up the phone. But just as he dials, Carol appears behind him without him knowing. She angrily drags Peter back to his room. But Carol, without realizing it, discovers the hole under Peter's foot. Then Carol acts like a madwoman, constantly saying something is wrong and that his dad will deal with him later. Night falls. Peter sees Mark and his wife talking about something unknown, and they seem very agitated. Then they calls Peter over for dinner. The family of 3 sits at a table. At this moment, Mark notices that he and Carol are eating with great relish. But the porridge in Peter's bowl remains untouched. Carol also says that today's porridge has a special aroma. But she did not add any seasonings. Remembering the pack of rat poison he bought last time, Mark instantly has a bad feeling. He quickly grabs Peter nearby and asks him what he did. Peter says that he put rat poison in the bowl. Mark is instantly thunderstruck. He quickly tells Carol to call 911 for help. After saying this, his stomach starts to ache. But when Carol picks up the phone, she discovers that Peter has already cut the phone line. Then Mark spits a mouthful of blood onto the dining table. Carol, who is nearby, sees this and grabs a cleaver, rushing towards Peter. But the moment she grabs Peter, the drug also takes effect on her. She spits out a mouthful of blood. Peter sees this and casually pushes Carol down the stairs. Next, he takes the keys from Carol's waist. He prepares to rescue Sarah. Despite Carol's repeated attempts to stop him, Peter still moves the large clock in front of him. He uses the key to open the iron door behind it. As the iron door slowly moves, an eerie laugh echoes from inside. Peter gets scared and quickly runs into the room, locking the door. He does not expect that Sarah is such a terrifying monster. Just as Sarah is about to open the door and burst in, a knocking sound comes from outside the room. It turns out Brian has brought a few thugs to find him. They plan to get revenge on Peter for a past grievance. Seeing the main door open for them, the thugs fiercely burst inside. Since they cannot find Peter right away, they start making a ruckus inside the house. Just as Intruder was furiously smashing the piano, a dark figure darted past him from behind. Immediately after, a tuft of hair appears on the piano. Intruder still wants to go up and see what is happening. But the next second, a pair of hands reaches out from below. Others were drawn to the shouting. And at the same time, Brian also discovers the remains hidden in the cabinet. Then the rabbit-headed man screams and runs out. He says he saw something terrifying. But after speaking, he is pressed against the wall, rubbed back and forth, and snatched away. After seeing this, Brian is so scared he tumbles and crawls. But unexpectedly, he falls headfirst into the monster's arms. When the last man runs over to check, the monster pounces over and dispatches him. And this scene is also seen by Peter under the bed. He finally knows why Mark locks Sarah up. Watching Sarah climb onto the bed, he silently lowers his head.
When you were born, they were so happy. When I was born, they screamed. So Daddy made me a pit. Then he made me a cage. While you were whining in this warm bed, I was suffering among cobwebs and rats.
It turns out Sarah has always been jealous of Peter, because he constantly enjoys his parents' love, while she, since birth, has been locked in a dark dungeon. But to repay Peter for letting him out, Sarah gives him a pumpkin lantern containing a human head. Immediately after, she locks Peter in the dungeon. The scene shifts. Divine arrives at Peter's doorstep. Because she received a call during the day, she remains worried about Peter. So she plans to visit to understand the situation. But Divine discovers that not only is Peter's door unlocked, but the inside is also a mess. Divine guesses it must be a home invasion. She picks up his phone to dial 911, but a clump of hair nearby catches her attention. Divine wants to go up and see what is happening. Surprisingly, something scratched her right leg. Looking at the monster crawling towards him, Divine thinks it is playing cosplay. She quickly runs to the door, intending to leave this place first. But she turns around and hears Peter's cries for help. Then Divine rushes upstairs. She finds one of Peter's hands reaching out from a hole. She quickly uses something to block the door and starts smashing the wall. As Sarah is about to arrive from the other side, Divine successfully rescues Peter. Then the two of them open the door and walk out of the house. But Peter, who is walking behind, is pulled back inside by Sarah. When Peter wakes up again, he is trapped in a 10-meter deep pit. This pit is where Mark imprisons Sarah. Sarah crawls towards Peter. Over 10 years of dungeon life teaches her how to climb pillars. At this moment, Peter finally sees Sarah's entire face clearly. He almost faints from fright. Just then, Divine returns with an iron bar. As she was walking down the stairs, a claw scratched her. Divine, startled, quickly climbs to the wall. Seeing the terrifying face, Divine turns her neck, preparing for death. Unexpectedly, Peter grabs Sarah's long hair. He begins to climb up little by little. Then, unexpectedly, the boy grabs Sarah's hair on his own. Seeing the immobile monster, Divine smashes it with the iron bar. After a few hits, the pained Sarah quickly retreats into the dungeon. Peter simultaneously lowers the iron gate and locks Sarah inside. However, just as Peter thinks everything is over, Sarah says something terrifying to him.
Do you really think this is gonna keep me down here? Every night, when you lie in bed, you wonder if you lock the door.
So whenever Peter sleeps, he hears sounds coming from inside the room. Terrifying shadows also wander at the door. And this hallucination accompanies him his whole life. Thus the movie ends.